the topic assigned to me is constitutional conception of justice. That is, whether it's equal for all or not biased in favor of some. I think the insinuation is that is biased against the marginalized people. But my idea is that the Constitution has provided equal justice for all. Now, good evidence is available in the provisions of the Constitution because the supreme values the Constitution tries to realize is dignity and worth of the individual, and the other side, unity of the nation. In order to ensure dignity and worth of the individual, it is said they should be given all his social, economic, and political and fundamental rights, mainly based on liberty of action. And also, some reference has been made in the directive principles. Some of it says that the marginalized people should be taken care of with special care. Now, so in the provisions of the Constitution, I don't think there is any indication Constitution has endeavored to give equal justice. But according to me, fact is, in the working of the Constitution, what has happened is the claim of the marginalized group has been tackled only by a small aspect of bringing them or giving them justice. Now, shortly stated, how to bring up the marginalized people. The thrust has been that end up in reservation. Reservation is the panacea for all the ills. But this has begun. I don't want to go into the history. It started with the Madras case, Nampagam case. All that is known to people, and gradually this has been made a part of the constitutional scheme. So what has happened is the claim of the marginalized groups, so scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and others, for justice has been met by giving them reservation. Now all the problems involved in solving their difficulties through this has been now felt. And little later, claim for reservation, which is shared with the backward class also. So the number of people claiming reservation, that is in education and in public appointment, came, and earlier the judicial process attempted, according to me, to take a correct stand that on judicial back scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and others should be brought up without damaging the fundamental rights. That means directive principles should be realized within the fundamental rights. But this really became gradually superseded. The marginalized, we could not unfortunately land upon any method other than identifying them with caste. Come to this caste, you will get reservation. This has been taken up by the political parties also. If you vote for us, we will give you more reservation. We will give you more reservation. So the clamor to be included in the reservation group went on increasing, and the sole criterion for that ultimately emerged, particularly after the Mandal Commission judgment. The earlier resistance of the judiciary seems to have died down, and judiciary also has accepted that method of rendering justice to the marginal group is through caste-based reservation. So the unfortunate result now is, in the initial constitution, we have made every attempt to wipe off all the evil effects of the earlier prevailing caste system. That is to stop all discrimination, abolish untouchability, and to provide also that the case should be taken care of well. But this is, as I mentioned, is boiled down only to hiding out a caste-based reservation. So caste, which has been kicked out through the front door, has come back through the back door and has become constitutionalized the present working of the constitution. Now, the problem of justice, earlier speaker, I don't want to go into theories and all that. Whatever theory one may follow, or whatever theory one may justify, I always believe that justice is an individual requirement. It is very easily felt by anybody. What is the living unit? The living unit is individual, who has hopes, aspirations, and the notion of fulfillment and achievement. So, the individual is the base of justice. And the society is, of course, he has to live in society, and therefore a balance should be struck between his claim and that of the others. And this is what every legal system and constitutional order does. And what we call social justice is a shorthand expression for individual justice. When individual justice is denied to a large number of people in society, we say there is no justice in society, so social justice is not taken care of. And social justice is in a way, and the old word of distributive justice appearing in it. But the damage it has done is, now the so-called individual justice seems to have been superseded by a vertical notion of social justice. And if the problem here is where individual needs all the facilities, suppose the community to which he belongs is taken care of or given some benefits, will it really inure to individual's benefit? Now the problem, when you not adequately recognize that justice is an individual requirement, and by tackling society as such, either in its formation or in the smaller groups, caste groups and all that, you are not solving the problem of the individual. Now you see in our own country, we have to first set all those who are well off, that means the reservation between forward and backward class. And then within the backward class also, sometime, particularly after Justice Schneier judgment in Adam Thomas, it has been said that the creamy layer in any reservation group should be eliminated. You can see how difficult it has been to work out in practice. It's very funny. I remember in Kerala itself that when this idea came, all communities claiming in our community there is no creamy layer, but in the other community there is creamy layer. And it is various criteria have been adopted in different states. And I don't think the proper balance has been found out for the purpose of this thing. Now, what is the best method of doing justice to scheduled caste on an individual basis? Of course, I am not decrying reservation if it absolutely become necessary. But what is the method? To make a living and continued life, individual needs food, shelter, clothing, and the basic necessities of life. If somebody cannot command these things, there is very little in saying we will give you a reservation. Reservation is actually maybe a secondary type of method. So I always say how to take care of the group, how to take care of the people, and then train them so that they will come up to the level. Now it's plain that the best guarantee for everybody's betterment in this life is oneself. He is given reason, he is given free will. Through reason he plans, through free will he acts. And society should not put undue restrictions on it. This is what is precisely the fundamental rights chapter. This is actually the method of bringing up anybody. Now, so far as the marginalized groups are concerned, our problem has been when, as I mentioned earlier, when some benefits are given, many more claimants came in. And even within the group, who will only the top few, and they will get the benefit. That by itself will not solve the problem of the bulk of the people. Even now, my own personal view is to reservation, some benefits should have been given to some people, but it has not set through the backward class marginalized groups. I am really enamored by the experiment done in Odisha, where nearly there is a
ടെക്നിക്കൽ പ്രോബ്ലം ആയിരിക്കണം. ഹലോ,
he says very different. They will get all the opportunities like that.
Sebastian sir, you are on line.
Is over.
no.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir. കേൾക്കാമായിരുന്നു. 2 മിനിറ്റ് ഡിസ്റ്റർബ്ഡ് ആയി, കേൾക്കുന്നുണ്ടായിരുന്നില്ല. 2 മിനിറ്റ്. ഇപ്പൊ കേൾക്കാം.
That's good. So, I mentioned the example of the Kalinga Institute of Social Sciences, where marginalized children belonging to tribal groups are taken and given food, shelter, and clothing. They are brought to that training scheme at the age of 3 or 4. So, right from almost like primary school or less than, they are given all facilities. And we get, when they are properly trained, some of them qualify themselves for engineering, medicine, civil service, and some of them do very well in sports. So the facility given for individual improvement, that is the guarantee for justice so that man is concerned. This should have been the proper way of taking care of our marginalized group. But a wrong beginning has been begun only through reservation. What happened is, at that time, the Constitution never says reservation. It only says in Article 16 particularly, those who are not adequately represented should be taken care of. And for this purpose, apart from reservation, the method of training and giving them the facility for improvement at the level of individual, that would have, of course, this would have meant great social effort, great expenses, but government, which is really serious and sincere, that is the way they should really take care of. So the question is, how on an individual basis, even for special treatment under the guise of reservation, this can be done. Now, what we do is, we just conduct the examinations, rank list and select list, and then apply the scheme of reservation. But and this is done. Higher institutions gets this problem, and not on a individual basis, but ultimately it will go to individual. But the selection is done not on an individual basis, but on a community basis. Now, there is something in America called the protective reservation. That's also, we are also saying now, justifying our reservation, saying it is protective discrimination, a question of compensating for the previous discrimination suffered. How they tackle the problem of race in America. Race, as we know, has been a discriminating factor, and after the 14th Amendment, and no race should be taken as a basis for any assignment. So how they do it is, well, after conducting a general examination, some credit is given for the individual who has suffered due to race. In individual case, you can assess it very easily. But in a community basis, are you reserving to the back neglected group? It is very difficult to find out. And even if then it will go to the topic. But in this case, what to do, I am told, is that suitable credit is given when the total scoring is done. And after the total scoring is done, they are put in the same list. So they are not even, just as we do, after being put in this list, if you get 15th place, you may supersede as number one on the ground of class. That is never allowed. Now, what happens in a scheme like what is done in India and what is done in America? Well, the true basis of benefiting a person is giving him justice. As I mentioned earlier, it is hardly meant by giving justice to a community or a group to which he belongs. So, problem is we should rearrange the whole thing, have a new look at the whole problem. Now, look at what has happened. Even after 70 years, how many commissions, legislation, court decisions, we have not received any satisfactory balance. Who is a backward class community? It is still being fought, and it's an entirely political matter. And this history is so funny that all political dominant people will try to include themselves as backward, as the Lingayats tried in Karnataka. In Balaji's case, that was the problem. And now we find Gujars in Rajasthan, they are claiming. And everywhere agitation is for coming down, either being included in the backward class or being included in the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe. So this balance. And then again the question is, the decisions, the legislation has been made, several decisions, and many have been struck down, many have been okayed by the court, and but no satisfactory balance has been achieved. It is kept a matter of boiling. And the problem has become greatly increased when the other backward class have been. I sometimes think that if we had given in reservation, if we had confined it only to the lowest people, SC, ST and all that, we could have given a greater proportion of reservation and perhaps done greater. Now you see, the courts have been trying to resist it to 50% and other restrictions have been put, but they are all with promotions, all changes, everything is made, all for reservation. And I mentioned about the creamy layer principle. It is also one of the funding principles. Without creamy layer, it will patently be unjust and difficult. For example, any group, take for example, our own former president, K.R. Narayanan, our Chief Justice, K.G. Balakrishnan. These people, they belong to reservation group. They will get, their children will get. Similarly, anybody who happens to have better facilities, better wealth at home, they will get better training and facilities, and the benefits will be given to them. And the really deserving people, the lower level will remain at the lower level. Then there is another very important point which I mentioned with some hesitation. Will this reservation in educational institutions have any impact on the quality of education rendered in this country? To begin with, originally it was not there. Somewhere in the 70s only, it started introducing. Now it is funny to see every education institution advertising their post open, reserved, like this. Now, my doubt is whether this will not have an impact. And very often, we may not get a person or a group to which the post is allotted. I remember in the Cochin University ship technology department, the ship's draftsman was allotted to scheduled tribe. For several years, it to be advertised, there will be nobody. What a use of making it? And there is so many types of combinations of termination. But the impact is, now is it not an elementary truth that teaching or imparting instruction should be done by the best competent people? An ignorant person, I'm not saying all research people are like that. If an ignorant people are teaching, he will spread ignorance in geometrical proportions. An ignorant teacher having 50 students, he will spread his ignorance in 50. So of course I may be answered that this may be done, but only minimum qualification. But you will get a slightly better thing. If a better qualified man is there, why this is a great effect which has got on society. So the problem will be in
Excuse
education
me,
it has got
Sebastian.
some impact.
Excuse
Even
me,
now,
Sebastian, sir. 1 minute.
yes,
Mohan Gopal, sir, please, could you please switch off your microphone? It is.
uh,
Could you please unmute your
allow me,
microphone?
allow me just 2-3 minutes. I will finish.
No, sir. I am just on Mohan Gopal, sir. For unmuting his microphone, it was on, so it is creating disturbance. Sebastian, sir, you can continue now.
Okay.
Thank you.
So recently there has been a parliamentary committee which was recommending that in educational institution of excellence, reservation should not be allowed. And now and then there had been effort from the Supreme Court also saying where special qualifications are required, I think reservation should not be done. So all this indicates at least that when a better qualified person is available or should handle a particular teaching facility or research position. That is the way, otherwise it will be at least to some extent a waste of the resources. So that is not taken care of now. And finally, of course, after the method of training and giving them is still considered for a time that the reservation is accustomed to solution panacea for all the injustice to the backward communities. It has to be continued. I have no objection that it may be continued for some more time. But one thing should be taken. I always used to think that in a reservation as practiced in our country, a commonly prepared list, the person who gets a higher rank is superseded later on down by a person who has got a very low rank on the ground, he belongs to a reservation. So this really gives some difficulty that a man is made to run the race, and those who come first, then the prize goes to who is on the 11th or 15th or 20th, because he belongs to a particular. This, instead of being unjust in the sense that the person is then sent out, he said, be satisfied, social justice requires your foregoing the thing. But then he may raise a question. See, for this discriminatory practice in society based on caste system, I am not responsible. This has been a long-standing thing in India, and to set it right at my cost is really unfair. You can easily get an analogy. If a man's property is taken away, he is given compensation under the principle of eminent domain. I sometimes think that the position earned either in educational admission or in public appointment, a person who throws in hard work for a number of years, and once he wins it, that has got an equivalent value. It is an interest which can be in modern conditions, at least in this context, considered as property. And he is deprived of it, and his position is given to somebody else in the interest of social necessity. Is it not fair to compensate him for the loss of his effort and things? So that can also be practiced in order to give justice. Now, finally, ultimately, the system, now it's more than 70 years, type of reservation should not be the basis. And the criterion for state assistance, this one form of that, should be not caste or group or anything, but every citizen in need of assistance. A citizen in need of assistance, he should be covered by social welfare. Of course, it may take many years and much effort and money to give training. But where there is a will, there is a way. If society tries well, it is possible to achieve it. Otherwise, by this type of method, it is very, very doubtful. And under the present system, we will never give a preservation system, and it will never give benefit to the community as a whole. Here and there, few people may benefit. So my earnest wish is that those who are superseded, they should be eligible for a compensation for the loss of his effort. Now I have nothing more to it. Thank you all very much for listening to me and inviting me to participate in the discussion. Thank you.